All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to today's Uplevel webinar. Thanks for everyone for joining. My name is Robin Livesay, and today we're going to go over some big news. So we're not going to hold the wait any longer, but in an attempt to be mindful of time, I'm going to ask that everyone place their questions into the Q&A window here. We'll do our best to answer them along the way or at the very end. So without any further ado, we're just going to go ahead and jump right into the directory services implementation and the brand new functionality. The agenda today is to go over Uplevel as the perfect fit for MSPs and customers, the great 2020 migration of Microsoft. As you might have guessed it, the domain services for small businesses as a Microsoft AD alternative, a direct comparison of the current options in the marketplace today, but most importantly, how to get your hands on the new gateway. So having grown to over 400 partners across the US, including Alaska, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico, there are now over 50,000 local devices connected to and running behind Uplevel, all managed by our network of events. And we're continuing to grow rapidly. With this growth, we have also grown the Uplevel product line to include managed LAN and Wi-Fi with VoIP QoS, firewall capabilities with DNS filtering and geo-blocking, storage with and cloud backups, SD-WAN capabilities, VPN access, and today we are introducing, as you probably have figured out, Active Directory compatible domain services. So, what is it that differentiates the current and future services of Uplevel from others in the marketplace? Uplevel has designed all of these services specifically for MSPs to make managing small businesses easy, profitable, and scalable. Using only enterprise-grade equipment with exceptional support entirely US-based, we enable MSPs to diversify and grow their business to, in many cases, expand into regions and customers they could never before reach. We have partners who have been able to manage clients on the other side of the United States and Hawaii, or logistics companies with offices in obscure locations. They're broadening their reach and diversifying their client base while still providing businesses with exceptional support at large profit margins. They're able to do this from the simple Uplevel design that allows MSPs to use their Tier 1 techs for regular deployments and maintenance. With so many high-level techs frequently being poached by large companies, allowing lower techs to deploy, manage, and troubleshoot issues in a timely fashion often means the difference between a profitable and unprofitable customer, while simultaneously diversifying partner portfolios. This same model also allows small businesses to avoid large, unexpected, or even expected capital expenditures for infrastructure that can be painful and cash-strap the company. Rather, we replace this with a consistent monthly cost, allowing small businesses and MSPs to use their capital to scale up rather than infrastructure bogging them down. But most importantly, we maintain the high level of expectations around infrastructure performance. Small businesses are then able to afford large company equipment on small business budgets. They are able to have enterprise-grade equipment updated nightly with the latest vulnerability patches for ease of mind and simple compliance, and they provide the MSP with a steady reoccurring margin. So with this model, we are officially introducing Uplevel's Active Directory compatible domain services for all of our customers with existing or prospective directory services needs. Small businesses, just like large businesses, require directory services and domain controllers to allow, restrict, control user access to critical business resources. This includes everything from customer information to HR documents and payroll. Businesses need the ability to say who has access to what and when. This is both for internal and external security reasons. In the event an employee's computer is compromised, hackers are restricted only to the resources of those that the machine gained access to has, and rogue internal employees attempting to cause damage. Viewing audit logs allows MSPs and customers to see exactly who accessed what data when, and for HIPAA compliance, this is required. Small businesses need the ability to see exactly what is going on in the network for maintenance, in the event of a compromise, or simply for compliance reasons. You can see exactly who logged in, logged out, and who accessed what. This breaks out into user access, global policies, and data access control on the network, all with compliance audit trails. But most importantly, for a small business, all this needs to be at an affordable cost that does not create a large barrier of entry for small businesses. With most AD implementations costing well over $5,000 in upfront cost, it is important that businesses have all of the functionality to stay secure and up to date without depleting their cash reserves. So currently, there are two main options available: an entirely on-prem solution in the form of an AD server, or an entirely cloud-based solution in the form of Azure AD, both of which are timely to deploy and costly for small businesses. But what if you could maintain the security and reliability of deploying on-prem solutions with the scalability and ease of maintenance of cloud-based solutions, providing the advantages of both without customers having to purchase and upgrade new servers or placing the customer at the mercy of their internet service provider? What if you could also make a similar margin on a monthly recurring revenue stream, entirely reducing the time it takes to deploy solutions, and doing so with lower level tech allows you the ability to bring on more customers, all with guaranteed revenue streams on day one. For the MSPs we talk to, this is what makes the difference. It allows them to grow without bringing on more people. It allows them to expand past their normal regions without opening up a second office. And it allows them to gain customers that they would have never taken before. For customers, this means getting a reliable solution that fits their small business needs without some of the large enterprise-specific features. Over the years, the number of features in Microsoft's server package has increased, which is great for large customers needing advanced features and specific controls. But what about for the small business with 35 employees? They can no longer use Microsoft Essentials with 35 users, but they also don't need the same functionality as a 500-person company. So what are they supposed to do? Well, what if they could pay for all of the features that they needed as a small business and still have an Active Directory compatible domain controller? This would save customers money and MSPs time configuring them. Well, as you could probably guess, this is exactly what we've done. We've taken the small business feature set and implemented it directly into a new domain controller gateway. This means small businesses can now have enterprise-grade equipment at a small business cost by only paying for the server features they need and not for the ones specifically designed for large-scale enterprises. In doing this, we are combining all of the key features of a firewall, SD-WAN solution, cloud backup functionality of the domain, gateway configurations and storage, and much, much more, along with the new Active Directory domain functionality in an MSP-friendly model with straightforward pricing and batteries always included. This is the first time the market has ever seen an AD implementation in a firewall, and this means that you can now even manage and configure the domain controller from your phone the same way you do the firewall. So now I'm going to pass it over to our CEO, Tom Alexander, who's going to go over what is included in the new AD release.
Thank you, Robin. Hello, everyone. As all of you well know, a domain controller has a large bunch of moving parts that provide different services. So the basic requirement, of course, is authentication and access control of using the computers. And also, once they get on the domain, then we need to control the resources that they can access, such as, for example, only allowing them to access permitted shares and so forth. Domain services also means enforcing global policies for users, so you can push policy from a central location. And of course, today we've implemented the most commonly GPOs for such policy management, and we continue to add more. However, sometime in the future, when we plan to want to open it up so that you can use tools such as RSAT to add a wider range of GPOs and so on. Since we implement an AD compatible sysvol, this actually is feasible. We're just not ready for to take that leap quite yet. Another key feature, really important feature, is providing audit trails to monitor and log activity. So for example, for HIPAA compliance, you need to have things like monitoring who logged in, who logged out, uh, activity on the storage, creation, deletion, modification, access to files, particularly files that contain patient health information. And all of these functions are necessary for HIPAA compliance and other compliance requirements as well. And of course, we need to continue the up-level tradition of very simple and straightforward cloud management. So all of the domain management is done through our cloud dashboard, just like all of the other up-level features. In fact, it appears on the portal side by side with other functions and features that you manage, such as the network and the Wi-Fi and so on. The cloud also holds the primary domain configuration. It manages the domain controller, and it pulls all the audit and status logs. And in fact, you can even do your domain management tasks from your phone if you find the need. So anything that you could do today on the cloud dashboard, you can use to manage the domain controller. The domain controller is, of course, automatically backed up to the cloud, so you can survive upgrades, equipment swaps, all that sort of stuff. So again, we want to maintain the exact same principle behind the Apple gateway, is that since everything is in the cloud, if something, God forbid, happens onto the gateway, then you simply pull the gateway out, plug in the new one. It pulls everything down to the cloud, and off you go. Next slide, please, Robin. So let me dive briefly into how we built our domain controller. As I mentioned, it's a domain controller has quite a large number of moving parts. They all need to work together very well, and they all have to be very reliable because you're actually running your entire enterprise on it. We basically combined a number of industry standard software elements and tools, and then built a large cloud-based provisioning and configuration management and logging layer around them. So, I mean, fundamentally, domain management and domain services live and die by DNS, as we all know. So we use the rock-solid Bind9 and ISC DHCP stacks for our DHCP and DNS. And DNS is absolutely essential. If DNS doesn't work, domain control doesn't work. For authentication, we use Kerberos, basically the same security stack that provides Windows Server SSO. The LDAP functions, as well as the group policy functions and the maintenance of the ACLs and the sysvol is handled by Samba 4. Of course, as you all know, sysvol is absolutely essential for maintaining things like GPOs and various policies, your domain joining scripts and everything else. These are all industry standard software stacks and building blocks. And what we've done is to bring them all together, figure out how to integrate them, have them talk to each other. And then around that, we wrap a ton of software and cloud functions to handle everything from provisioning to domain map. So as you all well know, backing up the domain and restoring it in the event of hardware failure is essential. Well, we all know that hardware fails. That's the nature of hardware. And this is part of our domain controller. Automatic backups are done locally as well as to the cloud. So the intent is that if something goes out, then the gateway that, for example, if the gateway that contains the domain controller needs to be replaced, then we can put back everything, including all the trust relationships with the domain computers. And the idea is that you shouldn't have to go around to 35 or 50 machines and rejoin the domain in each one. All of the domain provisioning and management is done completely under the hood, including the coordination between DNS, DHCP, storage, VLANs, firewall rules, and so on. And this proved to be actually the hardest part of the whole process. And just like other up-level services, we made it so that basically you create the domain, set any global domain policies you want, and the rest of the provisioning and all the configuration is done automatically. Next slide, please, Robert. User management and access control is, of course, one of the key features of domain management. I mean, the whole idea of having the Active Directory compatible domain services is to be able to allow consistent user management access across the domain. So in this context, we behave pretty much the same as any regular Active Directory setup. You can create and delete users, you can enable and disable them, set password policies, reset the passwords, et cetera, and so on. Of course, it is a bit early to see just how far we can scale the domain, but we have tested this up to about 100 users and computers without any visible known issues. So it can definitely do that. Certainly, users can obviously change their own passwords, and you can also force users to change their passwords on the next login or change the password or reset it for them. Next slide, please. So allowing computers to join the domain and establish the trust relationship is another major aspect of domain services. So domain controllers obviously need to be able to control which computers have access to the domain, and then which users and computers can get at the shared resources. Again, we act pretty much like any standard AD domain controller. Of course, much simplified and reduced for an SMB environment as opposed to the environments that we all came from, which were very large enterprises. And so you can join Windows professional machines to it. You can join OS X machines to the domain. In fact, here in the screenshot, you see one which is a MacBook and the other one which is a Windows machine. That is part of the domain. And once they set up their trust relationships, any domain user can log in on any computer as with any standard uh, domain services environment. Next slide, please. Something that has been much requested for our storage is to have per user control over drives. And in fact, that's exactly what domain services provides. Today, of course, as you all know, the Uplevel shares are available to all users on a given VLAN. We use per VLAN segmentation to restrict access. Basically, this is effectively the same as guest access code. You can, of course, opt to keep that same behavior with domain service turned on, but you can also now choose to select some or all of the shares to be under domain control, which means that you can control which user gets access to which shares. So this means that shares can actually be mapped for access by specific users or a subset of users. And so once they're mapped like this, you can then go back to the user control view and assign the access permissions between shares and users. So when a user to whom you mapped a share logs in, for example, you can assign a share mapping to the Z drive, and then the user will, as soon as they log in, discover that the Z drive is there on their dashboard and on the desktop, and have access to the Z drive just as with any standard setup. And so, yeah, as I mentioned, you can still continue to have guest drives that are accessible by all users and in the traditional way. Next slide, please. Of course, one of the key functionalities required for a domain controller is to provide audit logging. And this is really essential for a lot of compliance. For example, HIPAA, as I mentioned, requires this for storage that holds patient health information, EPHI data. And so we provide this kind of audit logging inside our domain controller. And so we keep track of a variety of detailed audit logs, pretty much everything that happens with the domain and the domain resources. And we're still improving and enhancing the functionality because, as you can imagine, a running domain gathers an enormous amount of audit data on a continuous basis, and stripping out all the noise, as we call it, and showing what you actually need to see is key. But as you you can see from the screenshot, we can track user accesses, we can track computer joins, computer creations, storage and file and folder access, check whether, I tell you when a user, for example, accessed file, created, deleted, etc., and all that sort of stuff. As I mentioned, the audit logging is a work in progress, but we have all the basic, all the underlying data being gathered. Now we need to present it in a user-friendly fashion. Of course, since there are a whole variety of different kinds of audits, we provide the search facilities so that you can go out. I'd like to see all the computer joins, and then click on that event type and give it some filter parameters, and off it goes. Next slide, please. Of course, the real proof of the pudding is whether you can just take a standard Windows professional computer right out of the box, no software to add, no changes, join the domain or join the computer to the domain, and then log in the user without installing any software and get exactly the same experience as if you were logging into a regular Windows Server domain. And we've done that. So as you can see from the screenshot, the process is exactly the same. To a Windows professional or an OS X machine, a domain that's maintained by an Uplevel domain controller in a gateway looks identical to a domain maintained by a Windows Server machine. So we actually, let's see, I've tried Windows 10, Windows 7, Robin's tried OS X. We tried various versions, and it pretty much looks exactly the same. So you join the machine to the domain in the usual way. You need obviously you need a local administrator account to do all that kind of stuff, and then you log in using an authorized domain user. Your desktop appears, your map drive is accessible. Log out, log in as a different user, use a new desktop, etc., etc. And so basically, this was our goal to be able to essentially allow the existing Windows professional and OS X machines to join the domain, and it appears that this has been achieved. All right, now I'll turn it back to Robin, and she can take it from here.
Okay, so all of this new functionality can now be combined with our existing small business portfolio with a combination of on-site and cloud-based services, and provide on-site security, reliability, and performance with cloud-based scalability, management, backup, and updates, providing a hybrid solution for customers to take advantage of the benefits of on-prem and cloud solutions for their IT infrastructure. With our subscription-based pricing, this also means that customers can always add on additional capabilities as they grow, excuse me, and only pay for what they are using, meaning customers can scale without having to buy additional infrastructure or products, and the services are always wrapped into a monthly subscription cost. So now let's take a look at a direct cost comparison, looking at a 35-person company looking to deploy or upgrade an AD server over 3 years. These are just estimates to give you an idea about what the average small business would spend to deploy just the Active Directory piece of a network with the standard Windows Server 2019. The largest thing to note is a 35 users, which isn't exactly a large enterprise at that point. The customer can no longer implement Windows Essential and has to move up to the Windows Standard, placing an additional cost of licenses on top of the existing server cost. With Uplevel, this entirely goes away. With the Uplevel Active Directory compatible domain services, the cost of the domain controller is simply $99 per month with no additional licenses needed. But in talking to MSPs, we found that a large portion of their deployment costs were actually roped into the labor needed to configure and deploy a full Active Directory server. For a 35-person company, the numbers all of a sudden start to get a little staggering. Using 40 hours of senior, junior, and entry-level tech time for a 35-person company doesn't usually make a lot of sense, both for the MSP and for the customer. For small businesses, being partially or entirely down for a week to implement or upgrade a server can be painful, And with all businesses relying heavily on their infrastructure for day-to-day work, this could easily mean attorneys not being able to file briefings or doctors not being able to process insurance claims. So in most cases, the MSP would choose to walk away from the customer, or the customer would choose to wait it out until they continue to grow, taking on whatever pain or non-compliance risk that came with it. With Uplevel, you can now reduce the amount of tech time down tremendously, along with the majority of upfront cost to bring the cost of implementing an AD server over 3 years to less than half of what it would be to buy and install an actual server on site. As Tom said, we do a lot of configuration on the back end that reduces this time. But what the cost of buying a server does not include is all of the other stuff: the maintenance, the insurance, the warranties, and the upgrades. With a subscription model, customers no longer have to worry about capital expenditures in the event of a premature hardware failure or buying more licenses when the company grows in size. With Uplevel, the premature hardware failure costs are entirely covered in the subscription model, along with complimentary equipment upgrades after 3 years, and individual licenses are never needed. When things change or their environment grows over time, Uplevel can grow with them. All of this is done to provide small businesses with a large company infrastructure and MSPs with reoccurring monthly revenue streams, giving you, the MSP, capital not to maintain, but to grow your business. With Uplevel, you get a complete integrated solution of all things small businesses need, reducing the deployment times and eliminating the need for custom integrations. This is an all-inclusive, complete solution for the small business, eliminating the complexity of cloud and on-prem solutions and providing a hybrid model, giving you the ability to configure and manage your customers from anywhere and from your phone. We will go ahead and give you some contact information that I'm sure everyone already has, but just in case you don't, these are great ways to get in touch with us. If you ever need anything, please don't ever hesitate to reach out and let us know. We are here to help as best we can. And always, thank you for being our partners. We really appreciate everything and all of the support over the years, and we're excited to see what comes in the next year, in the next decade. So like I said, keep your eyes out, but we're really thankful for everyone here today and for everyone joining. And as always, please let us know if there are any questions, comments, concerns. Almost all of the features in our releases have come as a direct result of partners asking for them. So always keep that in mind. If there's ever any questions, comments, concerns you want to see, please let us know. Otherwise, everyone have a great rest of your day. Keep your eyes out on those emails to see when those registration links open up. And we will talk to y'all later.